Hey, this is Tom Jacobs from tdjacobs.com, and I'm an evolutionary astrologer and a channel and an energy worker. And this video is transiting Jupiter in Scorpio for the Pluto in Leo generation. So it's a natural square. Jupiter in Scorpio naturally squares Pluto in Leo. So if you're in this generation, which I will have put up the dates at the beginning of the video, but also in the description of the video below. So you can see if you fall within this generation, from the late 30s to the late 50s, 1930s to the late 1950s. And I want to talk about the deep soul level intention of Pluto and Leo, what this subgroup of the population is trying to figure out and trying to heal. I view Pluto as the empowerment journey that the soul intends its humans to undergo. So there are different empowering as well as powerless and disempowering experiences that occur over the course of many lifetimes. And then in any given life, you're tasked with trying to figure out how to become empowered. So I'm going to talk about that with it in Leo. And then I'm going to talk about the transit of Jupiter in Scorpio, because Jupiter, for about 13 months, from October 10th, 2017, about 2 months ago now, today's December 10th, for another 11 months now until November 8th, 2018, we'll be in Scorpio. And it's bringing stuff up is the short version. I do have some resources on Jupiter and Scorpio. There's a 70-minute MP3 on tdjacobs.com on the Learn Astrology page under Astrology MP3s. And I did one video a few months ago, I think a couple months ago, right when Jupiter entered Scorpio, on Jupiter and Scorpio for the Pluto and Scorpio generation, which is from I think it's late 1983 up to early 1995, that subset of people. So let me jump. Oh, also I'm doing a Pluto Intensive here in Tucson, February 8th through 11th, and we will, for a small group of people, for 6 people, we'll get into your Pluto stories. I'm going to explain to you Pluto and the soul and what happens over many lifetimes and what's going on in your unconscious, the cache of memories from many lifetimes. And we're going to do energy work and meditation, and I'm going to channel for you, and we're going to clear some stuff and help you whatever block you have to being empowered now with your Pluto. We're going to clear debris and work on getting you aligned with the sense of power that is already within you. We're going to redefine what power is as well. So it's going to be a good time in Tucson, February 8th through February 11th. The link is in the description of this video below. So let's jump into this. Pluto and Leo. We'll start with just the basic idea of a Plutonian journey that everyone has. Now, in our day-to-day lives, it's typically our Plutonian self is unconscious. It's an outer planet. It's slow moving. As I said, we have these kind of generational influences. I count it very important as I do evolutionary astrology work. It matters quite a lot, but a lot of its effects are unconscious, and then those things may show up in the world around us, but we're not always aware of what's going on or aware of what's under the surface. The soul intends that you become empowered by meeting disempowering scenarios and making empowering choices in the face of them. So and sometimes you do it and it causes pain. And sometimes you do it and it causes a sense of triumph and winning. Sometimes losing, sometimes guilt and shame, sometimes anger, sometimes a sense of invalidity or worthlessness, or I'm so terrible I don't have the right to survive. Some of these really intense, dark feelings that can be associated with these kinds of experiences and embedded in our unconscious caches of emotional memories. Your soul intends that you become empowered through making self-respecting, self-caring, self-validating choices. So when you're passionate, Pluto, about something, and you meet something that throws water on your passion, part of you might be deflated and the fire is gone. Well, your job is to keep, if it matters to you, keep igniting that flame. And that's the idea of the phoenix rising from the ashes that is prevalent in our imagery of Pluto, Scorpio in the 8th house. So whatever sign your Pluto is in has to do with what lens through which your empowerment journey works. The house in your natal chart where Pluto is about the parts of life, the arenas or areas of life in which these power dynamics will play themselves out, in which you may feel disempowered and must become empowered. The sign is how and why you're doing whatever that is. So I teach about Pluto generations, and through Astrology Hub, you can get Pluto Generations online training course, which is really great, looking at these generations from Pluto in Cancer, which starts in the 19 teens, and goes all the way to Pluto in Capricorn, which is the babies being born today have Pluto in Capricorn. Starting in 2023, it edges into Aquarius. So covering, over 100 years, about 108, 110 years worth of births on the planet of what the Pluto generations mean. But the sign is the how and why something is happening. There are particular motivations that you're going to experience, and certain kinds of themes that apply to what makes you feel powerless. And there are certain soul level intentions that these groups share in common. Leo is about being seen as a unique individual. It's about shining. It's about self-expression and performance, essentially leaving a mark on the world. So Pluto and Leo people, this generation born from the late 1930s to the late 1950s, need to express themselves, to be empowered through expressing themselves. Now, for some people, that is, I have this creative thing I do. Please enjoy it with me. I would like to share with you my painting, my poem, my writing, whatever. Or I would like to tell you a joke, and if you laugh, we'll feel good together. Like there's a sense of sharing the creativity and the joy and the light. Other people need to just do things their own way, and maybe need to control certain scenarios in order to ensure that their thumbprint, their unique signature is applied. For other people, they may feel that their voice is lost. Other people may celebrate their uniqueness. There's a wide variety, throughout millions and millions of people in this subgeneration. But all of them, all of you, if you have this, are working on what it means, what it costs, what it takes to express the self. Because we're talking about forming and honoring ego, a sense of self, a unique sense of personhood and agency, and the right to have a voice and an opinion, the right to be heard, right, the right to express yourself. Some people with Pluto and Leo are going to have imbalanced or misaligned egos, because you're learning about having an ego. At the same time, you may draw other people who also have some version of misaligned or imbalanced ego. So some people with Pluto and Leo are loud. Some people have decided, I will never be ignored. Other people with Pluto and Leo are thinking, oh my God, how exhausting it is to constantly demand to be the center of attention, to be loud all the time. I'm just going to hang out over here and do my thing. Well, those people will draw strong egoed others in. So there'll be noise. It just won't be coming from them. So some people with Pluto and Leo need to be loud. Others kind of don't want to waste the energy, and why do I need to be the center of attention all the time? So anyway, these imbalances, these trying to figure out the right way to have an ego and what to align it with, this is central to the Pluto in Leo journey. Some of the disempowerment that has come over the course of many lifetimes, including the current one for any given person, is having your voice ignored or having your idea co-opted by a group. And then suddenly your name is not attached to your innovation. Other times it's being made wrong for having a voice. Remember times in Earth history when children and women shouldn't speak unless spoken to? That kind of crap. That can be the stifling of a voice. One of the other woundings, things that can really kind of get in the way of feeling good about the self and self-validating is having your needs overlooked or your creative thing overlooked. So like, oh yeah, she's a writer, but nobody's read her stuff. Nobody cares. That loss of being able to shine or being seen, being celebrated, being appreciated, being welcomed for your unique contribution is part of the wounding and the pain that comes with this journey. One of the major things, and I think this is kind of where I want to focus with the transiting Jupiter and Scorpio squaring the Pluto, one of the major things that can happen is if you, as a Pluto and Leo person, put your willingness to feel good about yourself, Pluto, deep sense of self-validation and empowerment and validity. If you put that on the response of other people, then you're going to mess yourself up. You know, think about it. If you create something and you feel like you need to share it, you may feel like someone needs to hear it and acknowledge you and validate you. But over the course of many lifetimes, you have found that sometimes they will and sometimes they won't. Sometimes they will validate it and it doesn't feel good. Sometimes they won't validate it and it doesn't feel good. You know, both ways. So one of the real keys to healthy Pluto and Leo living is self-validation. Do what you do because you love it. Express what you express because it's a part of who you are. And give yourself permission to have your unique voice, your unique presence, your unique contribution, right? This whole bit. I could go on and on, but that's the kind of core idea. When Jupiter is in Scorpio, you may come into power struggles about if you have the right to have a voice, or be seen, or be listened to, or be welcome at the table to your unique position and opinion and viewpoint. So, okay, we'll get there. I got a little ahead of myself by including that. But I just want to be clear that for many people with Pluto and Leo, there may be a sensitivity about others validating you. I have this opinion and you don't respect me enough to let me express it. Or I stood up in the meeting and I said what was going on and I was ignored because, and there's a whole story that can come in there, which reflects a deep level of pain from many lifetimes of having your voice overlooked or ignored, overshadowed, or somebody else who's louder saying, because I'm louder, you're invalid. Shouting matches. Think about that as an expression of people trying to figure out how to have healthy egos. Well, they may feel insecure and end up competing with each other to see who can have the loudest ego. We have many examples of this in our world. And if you're a Pluto and Leo person, you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh my God, I have forced myself to be quiet my whole life because I don't want to get into some, you know, competition over who's, you know, that the loudest person gets to win, you know. Anyway, okay, so that's the kind of Pluto and Leo core thing. You are motivated to develop the uniqueness within yourself and share it and express it. Again, to recap, if you put others' responses to you, if you give the power to others, if they like what they hear and what they see, then you're going to get yourself into trouble because some of them won't like it. Like you do your unique thing. I just have this image in my head. You do your unique thing and you muster up all the courage, and the local coffee house has an open mic poetry thing, and you bring your best thing and you get in there and you read it. And on the way out, somebody who didn't recognize you or didn't see that they were standing next to you leaving the coffee shop said, you know, Plath did it better. Sylvia Plath was better. You know, that kind of like thing of not, you know, anyway, not giving you your credit, but like comparing you to somebody else. That kind of thing can be difficult in there. Other people's validation. So you have to validate yourself. Now, this Jupiter and Scorpio thing, and again, the whole story I put out in this 70-minute MP3 on tdjacobs.com under Learn Astrology. But briefly put, Jupiter makes things big. That's the overview. That's it. Bye. No. Jupiter makes things big. In Scorpio, it's about digging for the truth. It's about revealing underpinning motivations, undergirding psychological, emotional, intellectual issues that need to be resolved. So Jupiter and Scorpio, we have this huge outcry of sexual abuse allegations and inappropriate things. All these kinds of things are, excuse me, coming up as a result of Jupiter and Scorpio. It's time for us to reveal the secrets. So Jupiter says, you can't get by in your evolutionary path, human, if you are tripping over some unseen psychological speed bump and you're holding yourself back because you're afraid to admit a truth about yourself. So Jupiter in Scorpio is actually exacerbating the painful storing of what's under the surface, palpating it, right? Just like if you were looking for a vein to do a transfusion or to take blood, you do that so you could see it. That's what Jupiter and Scorpio is doing for what is under the surface and what hurts. Now, Scorpio is naturally square Leo. So here you are, Pluto and Leo person, and you are at this point an adult, right? This is the baby boomer generation, essentially. You know, you're not a kid. You know, you have years and decades of life experience under your belt. However you, not to mention lifetimes, but however you are dealing with your ego, your self-expression, your perception of having the right to have an opinion and share it, to leave a personal mark on the world, however you're dealing with that, Jupiter in Scorpio is going to, or has already, square your Pluto in Leo. And this will exacerbate the wound. If you feel snubbed, if you feel overlooked and ignored, the square is pressure and friction. Jupiter in Scorpio wants to push from the side. I always do this thing, my subscribers laugh at me, I think, of tectonic plates pushing at each other from the side. They have different places they're pushing. Eventually something slips. That can be the culmination of a square. Now, squares can also be one party saying to the other, I think you're missing something. Can I give you this insight into how you could do what you're doing better or differently? Or it can say, you're doing it wrong. They can say to each other, you're doing it wrong. Well, here we have the planet Jupiter. How can we dig under the surface to reveal what hurts and get to the truth? Know the real truth, even if it's hard to deal with. Squaring your ego issues, your egoic insecurities, your shame about having been too loud, your guilt about having taken up too much attention, your fear that you don't matter because your voice has been squelched for so long, or nobody listened to you, nobody encouraged your creativity. The Pluto wounding in any person is very deep. And so Jupiter in Scorpio is giving you the gift of palpating that hidden thing so you can get over it. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing the Pluto Intensive in February, is to give people the opportunity in this small group incubator to bring stuff up and really be free of it. So if this resonates with you, I highly encourage you to get on tdjacobs.com on healing courses and check out the details on that event. Jupiter in Scorpio is giving you the gift of exacerbating the pain that's hidden, bringing it to the surface, dredging it up at any cost. And so oftentimes during transits, opportunities, situations, perhaps groups, and individual others function as the teachers asking the questions or posing the questions that for our transit. So transiting Jupiter in Scorpio, squaring your Pluto in Leo, can be an intense, optimistic, forward-looking, even a head in the clouds kind of Jupiter person, somebody who is not afraid to tell you what he or she thinks, telling you the truth about you that hurts, or implying something about you that you fear is true and you hope is not true. Oh, you just want airtime. You just want to stroke your ego. You're just in it to get strokes from the group. You know, you don't really want to help anybody. You just want attention. What things are actually true about you or not, you might find during this 13-month transit someone telling you something like it, or a group seeming to imply it, or a situation seeming to call it up. It's all about what you hold and what you perceive your experiences mean. Pluto in my work, and this version of evolutionary astrology that I'm developing, or have developed, is central to it is this teaching about karma, which is that karma is a set of beliefs wrapped around deep emotions. You can change your beliefs, but you must alter your relationship with deep emotions. When it comes to Plutonian karma, it is the fear of death, the fear of loss of power, the fear of irrelevancy, especially with Pluto and Leo. So this transit for you over these 13 months at some point is going to give you the opportunity to see what hurts regarding how much airtime, how much validity you give to yourself. It will seem like someone else is pressuring you to be quiet or pressuring you to speak up. Either one can be challenging and painful. Like you might have been one of these people who's developed this kind of, my ego's kind of under wraps a little bit because I don't want to be obnoxious. And Jupiter in Scorpio will try to pull you out to bring your voice, to share it. That can be really uncomfortable. The square is uncomfortable. Squares promise a tremendous amount of growth if you're willing to change. But here we have the karma, the beliefs, and the pain that has to do with Pluto, the beliefs and emotional issues, run deep and, you know, have to do with the fear of death and the fear of the total loss of validity and viability. So if, you know, I often teach about Pluto, if you tie your willingness to feel confident and strong to an external marker of any kind, in this case, the validity that others might offer if they like your poem or your joke, or they find you attractive, various Pluto and Leo things. If you tie your, you know, possibility of feeling good about yourself to those things, at some point you're not going to get them. At some point you're going to be denied them, or they're going to be there and then be taken away. They're going to vanish. So you have to validate yourself and understand, you know, develop your own passions and your own relationship with what really matters to you, and you know, your own unique programming in what difference you want to make in the world. Everybody's Pluto points at being an agent of change, telling the truth about the self and telling the truth about others and situations in order to create some ripple, some vibration that changes things. So during this transit, you're being asked to get over what you think your ego is about and what it is for. Is it a tool to make you, you know, give others the opportunity to tell you you're good, or to reinforce that you're not good, to reinforce some old crummy belief? Or is it that you have a unique perspective and you want to shine light and bring it? Okay. Scorpio can be, any planet in Scorpio can be grating. It can be harsh. It can seem harsh. It wants to tell you the truth and be blunt in a way that may shock you. This Plutonian place within us can be very well guarded, so we don't have to re-experience pain or guilt or shame or rage or powerlessness or feeling not viable or not valid, feeling worthless. Can be very deeply guarded. So there can be the setup for power struggles if you are very attached to an idea of who you are or who you should be. This Jupiter is trying to give you a gift. Okay. The gift of opening an old wound so you can learn how to heal it. Okay. So the whole transit is 13 months. And depending on where you were born, in that range of 1937-ish to 1956, 57, 58, depending on where you're born in there, you know, there's a degree that your Pluto is in your natal chart. And it's, I strongly encourage you, if you're not familiar with your birth chart already, to make one. You can make one for free on astro.com. You don't have to have expensive software. And to make that chart up and look at the degree. And then on astro.com also, you can look up an online ephemeris, which tracks planetary movements. Somewhere like on the right-hand side of the page down, it says something like 9,000 years online ephemeris. Go to there, and then you can find the century and then the year you want to look at to track this Jupiter transit. It will station retrograde, meaning after direct motion, it will appear to, from our perspective on Earth, to stop in the sky and then go backward. And that's, I want to say it's like March 8th or something, 18. It's that early March. It's like the 7th to the 9th or something like that. It's right around there. And that will be at 23 Scorpio. Once you know the degree of your Pluto and Leo, I want you to look at this to see how close it is maybe to 23, right? Then it will retrograde back, appear from our perspective to go backward for approximately 4 months until, again, July 8th-ish, July 9th, at 13 Scorpio. So if you were born in the late 30s and have Pluto and Leo, or in the early 40s, say your Pluto is, I typically use a range of maybe 5 degrees of orb, 5 degrees. So if your Pluto is at 10 Leo and Jupiter stations at 13, that will affect you, right? The closer it is, the more intense it is, especially if you have it right around 23, right around 13. But this will determine how many passes have happened. And I want you to be aware, over your own natal Pluto. I want you to be aware of this timing so you can look at when this square effect is exact. Some of you may have one square from Jupiter, transiting Jupiter and Scorpio to natal Pluto. If you're early or late, then you'll have one. So if you're like before 13 or after 23, you'll have one. If you're in that middle section, 13 to 23, it will go up and pass, station retro at 23, go back to 13, station direct, and go forward again until it goes into Sagittarius. Anyway, you have that middle ground where you have several passes. I just want you to be aware of which group you fall into, and so you can learn how to read your chart better and understand transits. Essentially, you're being asked a question. Are you being asked that question once or 3 times? If Pluto is Jupiter is stationing and square to your Pluto, meaning, let's say your Pluto's at 22, Leo, or 24, and Jupiter is stationing a degree away from that square, the pressure will be on for several weeks, intensified, as that palpation intensifies and deepens and doesn't let up. So I just want you to be prepared to deal with some deeper, intense emotions that typically related to Pluto, that people all over the world typically don't want to have to deal with, because they can be intense and they're socially unattractive, and they don't seem to fit anywhere, which is another reason why I'm doing this Pluto Intensive, because I deal with Pluto all the time. I'm telling people how to deal with Pluto, but if you're caught unawares with this Jupiter and Scorpio square, and especially in Scorpio squaring it, it just might be, you might be in for the need to look at something really terrible about yourself that you fear is true and terrible and ugly. But anyway, everything can be healed. And if you decide all the time that you are stronger than pain and fear and doubt and shame and guilt and depressiveness and whatever, then you will be. Okay. You can also go to tdjacobs.com and get the grounding meditation, which I recommend for everybody. And thousands of people have downloaded this thing over the last, 10 years. It's a 13-minute free MP3, which will help you deal with emotional stuff through being in the body, grounded, opening the heart, connection to the earth, opening the heart. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of this video. I'm not giving you concrete dates on when your Pluto is going to get hit, because I want you to look it up in the ephemeris once you know the degree of your Pluto in your chart. But thank you for your time and energy, and I hope this was helpful. And yeah, keep in touch if I can be of service in any way through readings or tutoring or astrology courses. I teach evolutionary astrology to people over the web. And also come to Tucson in February 8th through 11th, 2018 for the Pluto Intensive, a 4-day, 6-person small group healing workshop. Bye-bye.